Hello and welcome to another episode of Auspol Explained. Today is another interview with a politician. Our special guest today will now introduce herself and give a brief physical description for accessibility purposes.
Okay, I'm a little bit disappointed that you called me a politician. My name is Anne Ali. I'm the member for Cowan, which is in the northern suburbs of Perth, first elected in 2016. I've got dark skin, dark hair, dark eyes.
Today's topic is marginal seats. You're in a marginal seat of Cowan.
The most marginal seat in the universe.
Incredibly marginal. You won it in 2016. The margin was 0.7%, I think.
6.9 to be exact, but hey,
Nice.
who's counting that 001?
Yeah, someone double checking. And then again in 2019, it was like 0.8.
0.8.
0.9, yeah.
Slight bump.
Slight bump. So how does that affect the campaign compared to just a regular old safe seat?
It affects that campaign quite significantly, actually. So first of all, I actually dream about whole numbers. And I dream about an election where I don't have to wait 10 days for the result to be counted. But when you're in a marginal seat, you're continuously campaigning. You're constantly out there. So you would do door knocking, telephone calling, going out doing meet your members on a regular basis, because you need to really keep campaigning throughout your entire 3-year term. So it does affect it significantly. You do spend most of your weekends out campaigning.
Yeah, that's a good point. You mentioned waiting 10 days or so.
Yes.
I think 2016 took you like 2 weeks.
2 weeks, I think, in 2016, 10 days, I think, in 2019, yeah.
Second to last, I think it was, to find out if
Yes.
you'd gotten your seat.
Yeah.
So some people who are big nerds like me, who watch election coverage on ABC like for the whole night, may be familiar with like cutting to X person and they've got a bunch of supporters behind them. They've got their own little hall and they're about to have a party. Do you do that?
Yeah, we do. So we do it, but I always have like 3 scripts, or not scripts because I really don't like to read off scripts. But so you have kind of 3 things prepared in your head, 3 scenarios prepared in your head. One scenario is that you lose, and so you'll go into your gathering of an evening and say, thank you to everyone. We put in a great effort. Unfortunately, we didn't get across the line. One script is you win, and you go in and you go, yay, we did it. Thank you, everyone. Couldn't have done it without you. And then the other script, which is my normal script so far, is, it's thank you so much. It's been a hard journey. We're going to wait on the results, and basically whatever will be, will be.
So, because you're a marginal seat, does that mean that you get allocated more funds than another seat, or is it more of just the onus is on you to just work harder?
It's a little bit of both. Look, certainly, the party will identify the seats that they need to hold or that they need to win. You do need more resources. That's just the nature of it, because especially if you're going to be targeted by the other side or another party, they'll throw everything that they can at it. So you do need more resources, but that's just the nature of it. So, you do a lot more campaigning and you need a lot more campaigning and you need the resources for that. But you do a lot of fundraising as well. You need more funds.
Cowan has had a recent redistribution. I think sterling has been abolished. So now you have this whole new area of people who don't know who you are. How has that affected campaigning?
You do have to get out there and get your name out to those new suburbs that you're taking in. But in terms of if you're a marginal seat, you're continuously campaigning anyway, as I said earlier. So it just means that you're still campaigning. You're just campaigning in different areas and getting your name out there, going out and introducing yourself to people, doing meet your members, inviting people to come and see you, letting people know that you would like to represent them, that it'd be great if you could have the honour of representing them, and letting them know that you're available for them, which is what you do anyway. It's just a matter of shifting that from the seats or the suburbs that I've lost to the suburbs that I've gained with the redistribution.
I'd just like to expand on that a bit. because there's like approximately 100,000 people in an electorate,
Yeah.
and you can't meet all of them.
No.
So,
It would be
like,
impossible.
yeah, I've never met my politician that represents my area. The most I've ever gotten is just a leaflet just dropped in my mailbox. So how do you reach so many people? Basically, can you just expand on the like different ways that like people could actually learn more about their local politician?
Do you know, David, it's really interesting. Like when I go door knocking, I just went door knocking on Saturday, and hopefully I'll do some this evening or this afternoon as well. A lot of people say, oh, I've never had a politician knock on my door. I've lived here 30 years, I've never had a politician knock on my door. Me personally, I've never had a politician knock on my door either. Wherever I've lived, and I've lived, south of the river, I've lived north of the river, no politician has ever come knocking on my door. I do get the leaflets, the letters and all of those things. And, of course, we all got our little text from the United Australia Party, right? But I've also never had a politician knock on my door. And when you go out door knocking, you have a target. Maybe, you'll try and knock 100 doors. But, you're doing it on a Saturday morning, sometimes a Sunday, sometimes a weekday evening, afternoon. People aren't home. So chances are that, maybe somebody did knock on your door, but you weren't home. You just don't know. So it really is basically a numbers game. It's just about getting out there as much as you can, knocking on as many doors as possible, and your strike rate will depend on a number of things. It'll depend on the suburb, like whether or not they have a lot of, if they have young children on a Saturday morning, they might be out doing sport, for example. So you're more likely to catch them on a weekday evening or a weekday afternoon. Right? Then you do phone calling as well. And again, your strike rate with that just depends on whether people pick up, what time of day it is, whether or not, they answer the phone. It's just like when you go door knocking, it depends on whether or not they answer the door as well. So the idea is that you knock on as many doors as possible. You make as many phone calls as possible because, you're right, you're never going to meet 100,000 people, but if you consistently keep door knocking and putting in the effort to actually make that human connection with the people that you represent, to kind of go beyond that person being just a number or just a voter, but actually a human being that you have a connection with. And that's why I do it, because that's what I want to do. That's the reason that I do it. Then you can make a lot of connections. You'll never make 100,000 connections for sure, but you can make as many as you physically possible.
How do you structure like time? Because you've got to fly to Canberra. So you've got your sitting weeks, you've got your duties at the office here, you've got a family life, and then you've got campaigning. Like, how does one structure the time, and are you just more busy than other politicians?
I think I'm more busy than a lot of people. That's definitely the case. I think time management is key, and you almost have to compartmentalise everything, right? So you compartmentalise your office work. So being in the office here is not just about meeting with people, doing media, going to schools, going out and talking to people, addressing constituent concerns. It's also about managing your office and the duty of care that you have to your staff, right? And that's a very kind of different set of tasks than when you're in Parliament. So when you fly to Canberra and you're in Parliament, your days, you have like 14, 15-hour days, starting very early in the morning, finishing very late at night. And your day there is again punctured with meetings, speeches in Parliament, debating of bills, question time, which I'm never going to get back. An hour and a quarter of my life I'm never getting back. Question time, committee meetings. And then you've got your weekends where you're out campaigning, or your afternoons where you're out campaigning, knocking on doors. And it's a very different set of skills and tasks. You're out there communicating with people, developing those connections, introducing yourself. And yes, the purpose is to get your name out there, but the kind of value of it is that kind of personal connection going beyond that person is just a number or just a vote, but an actual human being, so that people know when they go to the polls who they're voting for or who they're not voting for.
There are those three different roles that you have to balance, but as like a marginal seat MP, is there one that you have to like focus on more than someone who's in a safe seat?
Yeah, I think that the challenge really is that you do have to you do have to spend a lot more time campaigning, right? And you do kind of relish that time at home and in your office because you have to be continuously campaigning. And it does impact on the work that you do as a parliamentarian, because you still have the same kind of duties as any other parliamentarian, but you don't have the time really to be, you know, doing long hours in the chamber or you know, doing things like that, because you have these other roles that you have to balance out more. And I imagine, I don't know, but I imagine that somebody in a safer seat would probably have more time to focus on some of the other roles because they don't have to continuously campaign. You know, perhaps not imagine as well, perhaps dream is more of the word for it. So it does impact. It also impacts on like how many committees you can be on, how much time you can devote to committees, because you know, committee work can take up a lot of your time depending on the committee. You've got, you know, if you're in doing an inquiry, you might have a full day of hearings on a Friday, which basically takes up your whole day, and means that you're doing that and not something else.
So what is your advice to people who live in a marginal seat and maybe considering running for politics?
Yeah, politics is a wonderful platform for making change. There are challenges to that. It was, you know, one of the reasons that I got into it is because I got frustrated at not seeing the change that I thought was necessary and that I wanted to see. And yes, there are certainly challenges to that. But I think that we need a parliament that is much more representative of our community. And right now, it's not representative of our community at all. Not in terms of gender, not in terms of race, not in terms of ethnicity, not in terms of ability, not in terms of professional background either. So for me, I think it's important to encourage people to take that step to become engaged in politics. Even if you don't run for parliament, there are other ways to become engaged in politics. We're incredibly fortunate to live in a democracy where people can do that. Yeah. For people like me who have come from countries where there is no democracy, I think it's really quite humbling to be able to participate in a democracy in whatever way you want to, whether it is by, you know, campaigning with your local, with your aligned local member, whoever that is, whether it is actually putting your hand up and stepping up and becoming a member of parliament. And I think, you know, marginal seats are challenging. They are. But there are so many more benefits to it. And I like to give people the benefit of the doubt and think that everybody gets into politics for the right reasons. I think that if you're in a marginal seat, you're consistently reminded of those reasons.
Thank you so much for talking with us today.
My pleasure, thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Auspol Explained. Don't forget to comment down what you would like to learn about next, share, subscribe, and also a massive thank you to all my supporters on Patreon. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.